mutually exclusive to either model.
It's not mutually exclusive.
Whoa.
We used Uranus to predict.
What does that have to do with the shape of the Earth?
Because gravity exists.
Yeah, it's about
So
gravity.
what? Even
so you
if
keep
it
shifting.
did, so what?
You keep
What does that have
shifting
to do
though.
with the shape of the Earth?
You're deflecting.
Because gravity exists.
Dude,
If gravity
I
didn't
totally
exist.
deflected from our conversation. I had to get all you guys to come white knight for him and jump in.
No, it's just you're saying the same thing. You're not accepting the facts.
He's not being logically consistent with his theories. That's all I'm saying.
According to you.
That's projection.
Okay, so if he wants to say that because we can observe something consistently happening and it's a law, then he has to admit the same thing for the law of biogenesis.
There is not a law of biogenesis.
Yes, there is.
Law of biogenesis.
There's a law of biogenesis.
What's life to you?
What is the law of biogenesis? No, I'm sorry. What is the law of biogenesis?
Maybe you should just look it up as JL told me to do. That life only comes from after life.
You're saying the law of biogenesis, which does not exist. I would like you to actually tell me what the law of biogenesis says.
It says that life only comes from non-life. So life arises only from pre-existing life, not from non-living matter.
That is not a law.
It's a theory.
According to who?
According to scientists. Do you understand what a scientific law is? Do you understand what a scientific law is?
No.
I have
Yes, it's something that's repeatedly observed.
Just searched law of biogenesis. All I got was theory of biogenesis, theory of biogenesis. Not a single one mentioned the law of biogenesis, only theories of biogenesis.
Yeah,
okay.
All the law, but there's historical context missing here. This was devised when they still thought that maggots spontaneously
came from meat.
Yeah. So
it doesn't matter because everything
the notion of spontaneous generation.
We haven't had anything contradict the law of biogenesis.
And abiogenesis doesn't actually contradict biogenesis.
Yeah, that's life arising from non-living components, which is literally what the law of biogenesis says it does not happen.
There are ways that energy and non-living chemistry can interact to form simple building blocks that will be before.
We'll prove it.
Isn't life a chemical construct of non-living components?
The law of biogenesis that life arises from only pre-existing life, not non-living matter.
The question is, like, how do you define life a bit? Because are you thinking
There's multiple parameters, like reproduction, metabolism.
Okay. And so, so if we were to define it based upon just a cell, would you accept that to be life?
How long until this grain of sand becomes alive? Does somebody tell me?
It depends. I don't know. But like you were saying, it doesn't happen in nature. But you have these like sulfur.
I'll give you the characteristics of life.
Okay.
Energy processing, homeostasis, regulation, growth and development, reproduction, sensitivity or response to stimuli, order, and cellular organization. At least being made of one or more cells.
Okay.
According to biology.
Webster or something. Yeah.
So some people.
You guys want us to believe that a grain of sand, like dead Earth, like just grains of sand, a bunch of them, are going to come to life.
So through the process I was talking about, you have these sulfur flats, and they get energy from the sun, and they evaporate. Then more water comes in, and then it comes up, and it evaporates. And that process forms those non-living chemicals to react to one another. And then those chemicals form, and they react to other chemicals, and they start forming systems based upon basic science of those chemical reactions. You know, if you look at the cell wall, it's basically just lipids. And then inside of it, you have these things hiding in it. Life is a function of non-life that is connected chemically, essentially. And those chemical connections.
It just did all that shit because it felt like it, right?
No, that's not considered life.
So when you're saying like the term "felt like it," it's a function of the universe. And everybody's trying to describe that, but the term "felt like it," you can say that, but it's a function of the universe. Can you say God wrote the rules of that? Maybe. Don't care. Doesn't matter. But the thing is, it's the actual logic that we're talking about.
It's not life, dude. Whatever you just described is not even life, so it doesn't matter.
What you described is also contested. A lot of people don't agree on what life even is. Specifically, virologists don't necessarily agree on whether viruses are alive or not.
No, they know that they're non-living because they don't.
No, what he said does matter, Taylor. Exactly matters. Directly applicable. Talking about no, don't talk over me. It's talking about spontaneous chemical reactions that occur with or without influence. I mean, it's things that just happen by themselves, and it is like at the core of importance of abiogenesis, the theory.
Then my tree is going to become
left lane.
Even worse.
Left lane. No, hang on, guys.
It is evolution.
Left lane. Billions of years, so you gotta have a little space for that. Thank you.
I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry.
Say it again, Rob.
Rob, your mic shit.
Yeah, to occur.
Say that out of love.
It takes billions of years. That requires a level of faith. Thank you.
Yeah, the billions of years requires a level of faith. Well, yeah, I mean, there's just no proof of it, so then
There's no proof of billions
By
of
his own
years.
standards on what's logically impossible, that should be one of the.
You're saying there's no proof of billions of years? That's what you're saying?
There definitely is proof.
No, we're talking about life
billions
forming
of years. The proof
phenomenon.
of billions of years is that we need billions of years for life to occur naturally without any kind of like intervention. We have life here, therefore there must have been billions of years because that's what we need for it to come about.
No, I would say the billions of years is done other like not to try to prove the premise. It's based upon like multiple other fields of study and results. Leading
formation of lead is a major example.
Yeah, like leading to the same outcome. You know, within a range of variation.
And name one.
Name
one.
Name one what? Field of study that verifies that the Earth is billions of years old.
Yes. Thank you for following the conversation.
Okay, yeah. So whoever radioactivity, you have geologists would be another field of study that would confirm that.
You're gonna have to elaborate on your vague answer.
Geologists is a vague answer.
Formation of lead.
How do geologists prove that the Earth is billions of years old?
Formation of lead.
There you go. There's one. They can study rock layers to see ages. They can do crystals that form.
You're gonna need a flat Earth.
Mutually exclusive, right? Those strata layers are mutually exclusive to billions of years, right? Not just a worldwide flood that could have happened.
It didn't happen. Where'd the water
The
come?
formation of lead as well is another major example. It requires millions of years of decay.
They say the early Earth was a water world, so it depends on where the water comes from.
Where'd it go?
Who are they?
No, where'd it go?
Oh, I have a paper
Well,
on
I
it.
mean, there was
Early. How early?
There was that documentary about the Earth being a
Don't worry
water
about it, I'll
world.
find it.
It was Snowball Earth.
It was a movie.
Yeah,
No, where did the water go?
But you can go read the paper whenever I post it.
What was it before that?
The evidence suggests that early Earth, around 3 to 4 billion years ago, may have been almost entirely covered by a vast ocean.
Yes, that is possible. Yes. And then there was an
Yeah.
ice Earth. There was many things, but we were talking about a global flood and where that water came from. And you answered it speaking to billions of years.
Just saying, they say in their model that there was enough water to cover the Earth on early Earth.
Yes.
And is there less water now?
Yeah, but life wasn't around then, was
No,
it?
that's a good question. Maybe it was the ice caps were melted. I don't know. Whatever they say in their stupid model. I'll post it.
But in that, what you're posting is someone saying, "Hey, the Earth is billions of years old, and this
No,
is
I'm
one
responding
condition."
to someone's claim that there wasn't.
I understand that in your response, that what science that's built upon is someone saying the Earth is billions of years old, and this is one condition in which the Earth existed in.
The point was, they said there's not enough water, or where did the water come from? And I say, in your own model, I'm not using it as proof of my model, I'm saying in your own model there was enough water, because they say the Earth was covered in water 3 to 4 billion years ago.
The Earth is
then
covered with water
tectonics-
because there was no land. There was no
And then
land yet.
tectonics raised and lowered portions. Yeah.
Yes.
There you go.
Essentially formation of clouds.
And it says God separated the waters from the waters.
I didn't see a byline that says God. So sorry. Professor Parks, are you there?
Yes, but I think I'm having audio issues.
Now you're calm.
Is there an issue with the mathematics of orbital mechanics? Because
No.
somebody said that orbital mechanics fails when you get to space.
Oh, that's
Nobody says that, by the way.
That's not
I
what she
tried
said.
to push Taylor on that earlier.
That's not what she said directly. She said gravity fails in space. That was her direct quote.
Yes, and I wanted to know exactly from her what she means by that. I suspect I do know, but I want her to say it.
Did you catch the whole conversation? Because that would be the only relevant.
But you did. But the portion of the conversation I referred to is when you said the formula for orbits fails.
I never said that, dude.
That is
Yeah,
an
she
exact
said-
word for word.
No, she said gravity fails.
Yeah, you said
in space. That's what she said. But what he's saying, what he's implying is true. You're saying that orbital mechanics fails by saying
No,
gravity
okay.
fails.
You said the math fails, and I said, have you done the math?
Great. Okay, so basically what happened was we were talking about something being logically inconsistent in JL, the Warren's worldview, and then I said, is abiogenesis possible? He said yes, and I said, what about the law of biogenesis? And he said, whatever. And then I said, is flat Earth possible? And he said no, and I said, why? And he said, because of the law of gravity. And I say, okay, well that's funny, because the law of biogenesis, based on all our observations, shows that it's true, just like the laws of gravity, even though the gravitational model seems to not work in outer space or on the subatomic level. That was my
So when
point.
you say outer space, can you please be more specific?
Yeah, other galaxy systems?
Are you talking about dark matter?
Yeah.
That is not conclusive as to whether or not our understanding of gravity is incorrect or not. That has yet to be answered.
And
I'm curious
because
the
I'm curious.
conversation wasn't that. Even if gravity was consistent, then the law of biogenesis is still consistent.
It's not a law.
But wait a minute.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, but
If I may interject 1 second, your citation states that our stupid model, as you put it, the flood was 70, 80, or even 90% of the early continents. It was not a global flood in the sense that all land was covered, and which is what I believe is the suggestion because of fossils on Mount Everest. So this is drastically different than what you're saying. This is not a water world as the biblical flood would indicate.
Well, Harvard said little or no land exposed.
I'm reading your article. It says 70 to 90%. Did you read the article?
Yeah, but can you explain your answer for why there's...
It doesn't matter.
stuff
We're
on top of
jumping. We're
Mount
literally
Everest?
jumping points.
Yeah, we've been doing that all day. You just
Okay,
said
let me
that there
put
was
this
like
paper for
cells on Mount Everest.
And I'm curious about another point where we're talking about the shape of the Earth and gravitation, and in our solar system, discovery of Neptune, and then you said, oh, the orbits of or the rotation of galaxies. What kind of a divert is that?
Dude, the whole point was that if the law of gravity is true, even if it was true and consistent, then the law of biogenesis is also.
It's not a law.
Therefore, yes, it is.
No, it's
Okay,
not.
let me finish that. Let me finish that.
Yeah, but you're bringing in chemistry and mixing it with physics.
That's not the point. The point is that he's being logically inconsistent.
Well, they're not on equal footing, so you can't say if gravitation is true, then abiogenesis must be true. No, you can't just if gravitation is true, doesn't mean anything about a different division of reality.
It doesn't matter. If something's proved to be demonstrably true consistently, now, in his paradigm, like with gravity, that would make it a law. The same thing with biogenesis. Therefore, you can't say that one's possible and one isn't.
That's not what makes things laws.
Okay, based on the repeated observations. Likely seen the law of biogenesis. We have never seen anything other than the law of biogenesis.
You know what's crazy? People will pick apart the term theory on your side all the time. Biogenesis is a theory. And just as I grant that the flat Earth is possible, it's possible. It's very, 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 very highly billion% not probable, but it's still possible. You have to understand that biogenesis is a theory. It is not a law.
It's based on everything we've ever observed.
Okay.
Based on everything we've ever observed, the Earth is a sphere.
No.
I was gonna say,
If that was true, you wouldn't have any flat earthers around.
yes, you would, because you'd have people that would just fundamentally reject something just for the sake of rejection. People do that all the time. You have this type of deviation in thought all throughout society, but you still would.
Remember that breast that broke the internet a few years ago, where people were deciding what color whether it was blue and black or gold and white or whatever it was. People disagree on basic things, even after it was shown to be blue and black. People still disagree on what color it was.
I mean, it was also a question of the lighting of the computer.
Oh, that's a good question.
The device that you were watching on.
Sorry, go
Are you
ahead.
guys talking about the law of rejection?
No, I'm talking about the law of biogenesis, which the origins of that are back to Louis Pasteur and talking about maggots, like maggots being spontaneously generated from rotten meat. And it is carried back to, as it pertains to the origins, it's a separate conversation from abiogenesis. It's not really exactly the same thing, and it doesn't say that this is where we came from. It just says that, this is what we observed.
It is everything
the law of rejection was just brought up. That one's different because that's the study that was run on my Tinder profile. But it's...
Renee, I have a question for you.
Yes.
You said that there would be some segments of society that would reject whatever's being shared. So with that in mind, if the government came out tomorrow, you turn on the television while you're making breakfast, and you see that there's a public release, a disclosure about Earth being flat, would you then accept it, or would you become a conspiracy theorist?
So I would speak from personal experience. Government came out and said, get COVID shot. I said, I'm not getting COVID shot. I don't do generation 1 technology in my life. I'm not of things, and I get it.
So you have that level of distrust too, it seems like, because like I said, if the government was rolling out a disclosure, right, they're providing evidence around the clock 24/7, would that lead you to the...
Say nothing to those set of facts of your disbelief of what's said.
So I take it you're not going to... Let's just cut to the chase. It's a yes or no.
Also, the Glob model is kind of older than a lot of countries as well, so it's not just been previous administrations. It's way older than that.
What does the government have to do with the shape of the Earth?
Power and control.
Nothing.
Yep. Power, knowledge is potential power, right? So you don't want to give your power to the enemy nations or nations you're vying for for resources, right? Domination.
So wait a minute, hold on, back that up. So I'm going to ask the question again, just so that I can hear your response again. What does flat Earth have to do with government? Or what does the government have to do with flat Earth?
Power. Information is power.
So,
potential power, rather.
Okay, so explain that to me.
So you're unfamiliar with the term knowledge is power? Or
No,
knowledge
I'm
is
familiar with the term knowledge is power, but I'm very fuzzy on a couple of different things. So I'm assuming, and please correct me if I'm wrong if this is the case, I'm assuming that you believe there is some form that the government, and effectively this would apply to all world governments, that the government is perpetuating a global lie, and they are doing so for power, correct?
That's on the surface level, but as a Christian, it goes much deeper. It goes all the way to Satan. Satan is literally trying to undermine creation and drive people away from the Creator and truth.
The Bible Satan is the one that wants to figure out the truth.
Hold on.
I asked a simple question.
Contradicting yourself. Saying Satan wants to keep the truth from people. He's the one that in the Bible wants people to learn the truth.
That makes no sense.
I'm not talking about
Yahweh's one that
Satanists or anything of that nature. I'm talking about government and flat Earth. So how are they gaining power by perpetuating a globe lie?
Again, knowledge is power, or potential power. So what you'll do is you don't give this knowledge to your enemy states, enemy nations. You send them in the wrong direction.
So wait, I can kind of take over this here, and like I understand what you're trying to get at, Marks, a little bit, which is that yes, if it was a lie, it would have to be a lie between all governments. Like any big enough conspiracy would not be something to where like, oh, it's only the U.S. in on it. Like yes, China would have to be in on it, the EU would have to be in on it, and then so the question of power that you're trying to ask is like, oh, well, like how is the U.S. gaining power if they're perpetrating a lie, but then China also has to perpetrate the lie. The question would be, it's not China versus the U.S. It would be these governments, this sort of one world government entity, and whoever comprises those groups against the normal everyday Joe, and that would be where the battle lines are drawn.
That is not what Eden the Waterman is saying. Eden the Waterman is next sentence was knowledge is power to be used against other nation states, which would indicate that there are nation states that do not believe that the Earth is a globe, which is demonstrably, well, as far as I'm aware, demonstrably false.
Yes, which is why I was trying to take over, because I think that's just a silly argument, and I think that's a more productive one.
Formulated, I would actually align that with. I would agree with yes, but that's probably far more accurate.
But again, I'm specifically referring to you, and I don't really want someone else to put words in your mouth. I specifically want to know what your belief is, that somehow governments are using that the Earth is a globe as a lie to fight other governments who also believe the Earth is being a globe is a lie. How does that work? How does that work?
So essentially, before the globe was supposedly confirmed with the moon.
I have a quick thing to point out.
Yeah, I relinquished my time, but I guess I would say that, yeah, essentially...
Everyone, that you are full of shit. It was not...
Your presentation... I know, this is a long timeline. That's why I think this is
no.
Spiritual. But
you
UK was around.
The United States and England. Basically, what I'm doing here, Eden the Waterman, is that you are not only full of shit, but you are perpetuating this idea that globalists are Satanists, and I want to demonstrate to everyone that you are full of shit who does not know what they're talking about.
Talk about missing matter. What an interesting comment coming from someone who talks about missing matter. I think you're making it up all the time. Your presentation, I'm glad I missed it.
Eden.
Because it was full of garbage.
1 second.
Storytelling. But you can continue doing what you do. Thank you. Kiwa, did you have something to add? I think maybe someone else had some input.
It was me. I had something to add. Eden said that most of these governments are majority atheist, yet only 3 countries in the world are majority atheist. 4 countries, sorry. China, North Korea, South Korea, and Japan.
The question here, like if you're trying to take it in a good faith, would be that the leaders are atheists, and that's separate from the population, because the population of a country and the leaders are not the same entity.
I'm pretty sure a lot of leaders publicly go and worship as well.
In fact, yes, I think you summed it up much more eloquently than I did. I think that was a better way to look at the situation.
Yeah, because it's also no secret that, like, especially in America, it's a common refrain that, politicians will have to, pretend to be Christian or pay lip service to Christianity in order to get elected. So a lot of politicians can, fake being Christians. At least that is a common perspective among atheists, that many politicians are actually atheists and just pay lip service to Christianity to get elected.
Yeah.
So
in fact, that would be a very clever thing to do.
To a no true Scotsman argument, Yasuke? Like, how would you know if they're really Christians or not?
I'm just saying that is a common argument that is given by atheists.
I can address that more than one if you'd like to hear it.
Yeah, sure, go ahead. No pressure.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Okay, so take someone, he's going to study for an exam. So someone gives him the wrong material. So let's say someone wants to become a brain surgeon or a lawyer or get their driver's license. Someone gives them the complete wrong material. They study it, they memorize it to the T. Come time for the exam, they fail terribly, right? Because they didn't have the proper information. Now let's take that same individual, give him the correct information, right? And he passes with flying colors. But then as soon as he stops following these rules, like imagine a doctor, they stop following the rules, or a driver, he stops following the rules, he doesn't want to follow the rules, his license is going to be revoked. So it's the same thing. You're going to have people claiming to be Christian, but once you get into the details, you can find out maybe they're not. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
Fair enough, but how would you determine that on a mass scale?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. So essentially, you could probably from my interactions with a lot of the Christians today, a lot of them just don't know the 10 Commandments or parables of Jesus. They don't believe in the creation story. So essentially, I think there's a lot of Christians out there that are.
Yeah, because as a simple thing, there's not a single, at least from what I could tell, a single atheist population in any country that has above replacement birth rate. There's not a single atheist country that has above replacement birth rate. Yet there are a ton of Christian, Muslim, et cetera, countries that have above replacement birth rate.
So let me take a look. 1 sec. So let me
1 second.
Yeah, if I want to catch people up on essentially the argument is that we can agree as humans that we have a biological imperative to reproduce, evolutionarily, whatever. The sustainability of humans is something that is a very important thing. You can say just from a biological purpose, but that is something that is important to humans. It's something that's inbuilt into us. And for anything to be a new thing that comes into a society, it needs to be able to justify itself. As in, there's these things that have worked over time, and then any new thing that comes in has to, since it is breaking an established order, it needs to be able to justify itself as something that is valid. And so, one of the most important things that shows whether or not a society is sustainable is replacement birth rates. And so, there is not a single atheist population or atheist country that has above replacement birth rates, as in 2.1 births per woman.
I'm looking at the data right now, and I mean, granted, I'm only looking at 50 countries, but except at the extreme end, perhaps. So this is kind of interesting. So let me show you this. Let me just let me share my screen actually.
Yeah, and this is also why in secular countries, the solution to below replacement birth rates is to import religious folk, which is to say that that alone is kind of defeating of atheism. If the only solution to atheism's low birth rate problem is to use religious folk to
Hold on 1 sec. Hold on 1 sec. Hold on 1 sec. So this is a 50 country study that I just did. Are you able to see my screen?
It's still loading. 1 second. Okay.
All right.
Yes.
All right. So this is the left, the y-axis. 1 sec. So let's. What is it? Sorry, I'm doing this on the fly, so it takes a minute. X-Lab is atheism rate, and Y-Lab. Now, granted, this is only 50 countries. This is just what I found data for. So we can look at the actual countries and see if there's bias in the sample. But let's look at the and so this is atheism versus birth rates. And now to that, I'm going to show you the. So you see that there's
That though, like it seems grossly wrong on the atheism numbers because there's so many countries that are more than 0.1%.
Then in Kane's line, we're like, atheists, bro. Like, it's not that they were technically atheists, but they were.
The higher literacy rate, the lower birth rates are going to be.
Yeah, I think that's the real correlation. To be honest.
That is the common argument is that like urbanization, education, etc. are the things that.
Can somebody who's more tech savvy download the CSV data from the page source for me?
Do you think quality of life could also play a factor? Like the quality of the life of people that are being born?
The other factor that could be huge is also economic opportunity. And one thing you also look at is societal cohesion and
that are being introduced versus things that have proven to have been able to exist in a sustainable system.
Okay, does anyone have a response to that? Because I've been kind of responding a good amount. I could keep going back and forth with you, SK, but I want to give other people opportunity to respond.
For sure. But yeah, like as an example in this is a lot different than something that's existed for.
To establish that makes it a good per se.
Yeah,
because,
which.
Why or something. Can somebody check that has the link if the is that what you're checking? Looks like we have like Lucille, Veronica, Age. I'm just kidding.